Castor, the woman who fell from heaven. Vesna Vulovic's impossible survival. On January 26, 1972, a young flight attendant named Vesna Vulovic boarded JAT Flight 367 in Stockholm, heading to Belgrade. She wasn't even supposed to be on that flight. Due to a scheduling mix-up, she had been confused with another crew member with a similar name. By the end of that day, Vesna would hold a world record that nobody wants to break, surviving the highest fall without a parachute in human history. This is her story. Vesna Vulović was just 22 years old, working as a flight attendant for Yugoslav Airlines known as JAT. She had only been in the job for less than a year, but she loved it. The travel, meeting new people, the adventure. On that cold January morning, JAT Flight 367 departed from Stockholm, Sweden, with a scheduled stop in Copenhagen before continuing to Belgrade, Yugoslavia. Vesna was working in the rear of the DC-9 aircraft alongside her fellow crew members. The flight was routine. Passengers settled in. The crew went about their duties. Everything was normal as the aircraft cruised at 33,330 feet, over 6 miles above the frozen landscape of Czechoslovakia. Then, at 4:01 p.m., without warning, an explosion tore through the aircraft. Vesna later recalled serving coffee to passengers when the explosion occurred. She remembered a sudden flash, a deafening roar, and then nothing. She had no memory of the fall, no memory of the impact. Her mind had mercifully shut down. The aircraft disintegrated in midair. Debris, luggage, and bodies began raining down on the snow-covered mountains of Czechoslovakia below. Of the 28 people on board, passengers and crew, everyone died on impact. Everyone except Vesna. What happened next defies explanation and has baffled medical experts for decades. Vesna, still strapped to a section of the fuselage with a food cart wedged against her, fell 33,330 feet toward the earth. For perspective, that's higher than Mount Everest's summit. It's a fall that should have been absolutely, unequivocally fatal. But Vesna had several factors working in her favor, though favor seems like an inadequate word for such a horrific situation. First, she remained attached to a part of the plane's structure. The section of fuselage acted like a crude protective shell, taking some of the impact force. Second, she landed in a heavily forested, snow-covered mountainside. The thick pine trees broke her fall, branch by branch, slowing her descent. The deep snow provided a final cushioning effect. Third, and perhaps most crucially, she had low blood pressure. Medical experts later theorized that this helped her survive the rapid decompression and the fall itself, as she likely lost consciousness immediately, keeping her body relaxed rather than tensed for impact. A man named Bruno Honka, a former World War II medic living in the area, heard the explosion and rushed toward the crash site. He found Vesna in the wreckage, barely alive, trapped in the twisted metal. She was bleeding heavily, her skull fractured, her legs shattered, vertebrae broken, but she was breathing. Bruno's immediate first aid kept her alive until rescue teams arrived. Vesna was rushed to a hospital in a coma. Doctors didn't expect her to survive the night. She had a fractured skull, broken vertebrae, both legs broken, 3 broken ribs, and was temporarily paralyzed from the waist down. But Vesna Vulović was a fighter. She remained in a coma for 27 days. When she finally woke up, she had no memory of the crash, the fall, or the rescue. To this day, her last memory was greeting passengers as they boarded in Copenhagen. Everything after that was simply gone. Her recovery was long and painful. It took her 10 months to learn to walk again. She would struggle with health complications for the rest of her life. But against all odds, she not only survived, she eventually returned to work for JAT, though in a desk job rather than flying. The Guinness Book of World Records officially recognized her survival as the highest fall without a parachute on record, a record that still stands today. The cause of the explosion remained shrouded in controversy. The official investigation concluded that a bomb planted by Croatian nationalists had brought down the aircraft. The Yugoslav government accused a group called the Ustaše Croatian Revolutionary Organization. However, no one was ever convicted of the crime. Some investigators later questioned whether it was actually a bomb at all, suggesting it could have been a mid-air collision, structural failure, or even a mistaken shoot-down during Cold War tensions. Vesna herself never claimed to know what happened. She always said she simply couldn't remember and didn't want to speculate about the cause that killed her colleagues and friends. What remained undisputed was the miraculous nature of her survival. Vesna Vulović lived a full life after her incredible,